Hi, welcome to DC Fan Gives Hope. Let's get all this out of the way, okay? Right, if you're just joining us for the first time, my name's William Adams. Years ago when Man of Steel movie came out, I was taken back with some of the negative stuff that was said about it. It came with a lot of mixed reviews, and so I started a page called Man of Steel Fan Gives Hope, where I would just post positive stuff on Facebook, not only just for Man of Steel, the movie, but everything DC related. I tried to put everything there. Then as the years went on, I ended up defending and posting positive stuff about every film. I became a fan of Zack Snyder. But as the years went on, I decided to change the Facebook group to DC Fan Gives Hope, because that is my first passion. My first passion is DC, and I just didn't want people to mix. I didn't want people to get confused about where my loyalties lie, and my loyalties first of all lie with DC. Now, I've got that out of the way. What I want to do is there's a lot of news coming out. I'll try not to say too many names of where I got this information and whatnot, because people will then check it out for themselves, and then they'll take that as gospel and stuff like that. And we're getting a lot of stuff on Facebook these days about like Zack Snyder supposedly being fired from Justice League. And what I've heard is the dates that these groups have been talking about. I've also seen reports that contradict those, and in those months that it was supposed to be fired from the film, he was actually editing the film. I'll contradict myself here by saying it was a Mark Hughes tweet, okay, who so-called said he was editing the film. So all of this stems from, now I wanted to talk about is the Warner Brothers, Zack Snyder and everything else. Now, I decided to do this in my car because I've got an hour to kill. I'm not sitting at a desk with any sort of stuff. I'm trying to pass myself off as somebody that has great knowledge in these things, and that you should actually listen to me, and what I'm saying is I don't want anything like that. I just wanted something just as simple, just me talking, get my feelings out. And what I'm going to try and do is, as I'm going to be trying to do something different from what other YouTubers do. Well, I hope you may think it's different. And as I say, I'm not a YouTuber. This is a mobile phone. I'm in my car. This is as technology advances as it gets in my YouTube videos. So, because my page is a positive one, I then have to first of all show positive side for, of course, the Zack supposedly cut and the Zack Snyder cut, and also the film that we got out just now, and also the Warner Brothers. It would be wrong for me to choose a side of or wanting this to choose a side of what to go down, because that way then I'm contradicting myself to be that I didn't like that version, or I didn't like this version, or I'm hoping for that. For me, I'm positive about the stuff that we've got, but I've also got to be positive about the people that want something else. So it's quite hard. It's quite hard to run a page when there's a lot of, and it's known to be a lot of people out there have been sadness, and I normally do something that lasts for 5 minutes, but I thought this, I need to really get the message across. I need to explain myself first and foremost, and then carry on, and this is why this video may be a wee bit tad longer. So now it's all the way, okay? Now you understand. I am basically going to give you the positive side on everything, and why it might do it and whatnot. As I say, Zack Snyder started with Man of Steel, and it met with mixed reactions. Even Geoff Johns, our beloved DC Comics, is allegedly not a big fan of the movie and would like to have changed it, even though it did somehow got warmer reception than the previous film, Superman Returns. There was a lot of mixed reaction because there was a lot of fans saying that isn't my Superman, and that my Superman's more cheerful and more positive and stuff. And maybe if you were watching the Christopher Reeve movies, you would think that. But comic book fans, like myself, was already saying, no, this is the Superman we read about in comics. People would then go and say, you go back and watch those movies. But we comic book fans know that this is our thing. I remember sitting and watching Man of Steel in the cinema, and in that fateful moment when Clark, well, he's not Superman in the movie, he's not there yet, snaps the neck of Zod. I went, oh my god, I couldn't believe they went there. A man sitting beside us at the cinema, he sort of laughed at me because I was taking this serious, but I sort of knew. But I thought the film explained itself and why Superman done that. And in further research, I found that Superman has killed Zod before in some similar circumstances. And the fact that he was given no choice, and to be a hero, he had to sacrifice a bit of his soul for the greater good, and that is Superman. So that was my stance on Man of Steel. But again, through the people like Geoff Johns, wasn't too big of a fan. But they let him carry on to BVS. So he started working on BVS, and the film was stretching over what Warner Brothers would have liked. It was a dark film. So after probably watching Man of Steel, they were a bit apprehensive on BVS. And then they decided, listen, we need to make this film around about 2 hours. Can you give us that? They also tried to make the studio, because the studio is there to benefit everyone and not just a small fan group or of a director, i.e. like Zack Snyder. So they insisted that Zack Snyder cut the film down to 2 hours, and Zack must have made a deal to be able to have his own cut, his ultimate cut. For the first time in film history, that film was also released in the cinema not long after BVS. So with the 2 hour cut, the studio was trying to appeal to kids, and this film seemed to be having a sort of higher rating, more in line with adults, which then have cut a vast majority of audience to go and see it. So they made the film, and it was again met with mixed results, and it wasn't getting the money that the studio aimed for the film. Now, it could have been a mistake for Warner Brothers to intervene, but again, they intervened, and the ultimate cut was released to a higher certificate. God knows why, there wasn't much in that film to have that higher certificate. So then so now the executives and whatnot of Warner Brothers had seen the backlash that BVS got. Again, Zack Snyder fans stayed true to the word and supported the film, and demanded yet again more the edited version of the film. When behold, we got the ultimate. Now, Zack Snyder was again working on Justice League, roughly about maybe the same time he was finishing BVS. and he'd done quite a lot of the post-production. And post-production is quite a vast majority of the film. But because of the studio, and maybe the top guy, I'll not say his name, the top Chinese guy or Japanese guy at the time, that was allegedly trying to hurry these films along because he wanted some sort of bonus. But if it wasn't for him, we may have not have started the DCEU, because it was only this guy that's foreseen the benefits of having a comic book universe thanks to Marvel's success. So on the back of BVS, the first edition that came out, not the Ultimate Edition, they then tried to get Zack to change his approach, because Justice League itself was going to be a dark film, but lighter than BVS. Zack had planned to make 2 films out of the Justice League, where Superman would have turned dark. Again, the studio is panicking, because not a lot of people are seeing what they would call Superman yet. And Batman was met with backlash because a lot of people didn't understand what this character of Batman was doing. It looked as though he was killing folk or being more of a vigilante, and a lot of people didn't grasp Zack Snyder's version, because it was homage to the Dark Knight Returns book, where he was kind of broken and stuff, and that was being more violent and more sort of judge, jury and executioner, because Lex Luthor had been playing Mind Trap. Anyway, so because of the backlash that BVS got, Zack Snyder was then told to change his film. He'd already arced out a whole, thanks to him and his writer, Chris Terrell, he'd already written a 2-parter or whatever, and he started to make these scenes, and he was told to change it. So again, trying to play the studio. Now you must remember that Zack Snyder, in one of the interviews before Superman, before Man of Steel, he actually told the interviewer that he was well aware of the studio's interference, and that he was used to it. He was used to the studio interference and saying he can just make his film as best as he could, because sadly enough, he doesn't have the hiatus like George Lucas or Steven Spielberg or whatever to call the shots just yet. So after changing Justice League into 2-parter, he was then faced with the death of his the suicidal effect of his daughter. So as he was trying to get the Justice League film done and try to give the studios, Warner Brothers, something that they wanted. Now you must understand, the studio is seeing the positive critics, the critical response to Marvel films. They're seeing the money, the earnings that BVS could have made. Was it their mistake for not releasing the ultimate cut? We'll never know, because there will still some people that would still say that is not my Batman, that's Superman. The studio felt like they had to turn the audience around. They couldn't sacrifice another film with the same sort of backlash the previous 2, that it was too dark. So of course they had to step in and sort of try and usher Zack to make it. And around about this time, this false report, I would say in my own opinion, of him being fired started. But he wasn't fired, he was still working on the film. So then you got Joss Whedon, who came in. Now Joss Whedon came in to help, and Zack was helping him and to do some reshoots that both of them supposedly agreed to. And now some people will say, what's a Joss Whedon shot and what's a Zack Snyder shot? And that will be probably debatable until more and more is learned, probably in years later. But there's evidence just recently acquired where Superman is opening his chest at the last couple of minutes, and a lot of people had said that was a Joss Whedon cut, where we've now came on proof that it was Zack's. So there's a lot of scenes in these films that we'll always wonder what is a Zack input and what was a Joss Whedon. You may yourself think that you know, but then you could also easily be proven wrong. And the amount of time that was available to Joss Whedon to reshoot an entire film wasn't possible. What he was probably tasked with was, in my opinion, is the studio still wanted its 2-hour movie. They didn't want a 2-hour 45-minute movie, so they had to cut. Now, Zack trying his best to trying to get as much of it cut down or changed because it's no longer a 2-parter. He felt the stress. He felt the stress probably from the studio, and he felt the stress from Warner Brothers making the 2-hour cut. Now, allegedly as well now, of course, because there was a new director, the music had to change, because the music probably written for the film wasn't now going well with what Zack had changed it to, so they brought in another one. Now, Zack had already been done, he's finished with the film, and probably the actors on stage felt empathy for the director, having to make all these changes. And you had Cyborg coming out with "I love Zack Snyder" t-shirt. You had Zack Snyder tweeting about, I think his tweets were "never compromise," because he wasn't willing to change quite a lot of that in his film. He wasn't willing to change that, and because of the stress, he had to walk away. Now, I know what you might be thinking. So Zack walked away to deal with his daughter and go and other things, and the actors felt sorry for Zack and stuff, and Joss Whedon was forced into a predicament he didn't like. But Zack is still credited as director because most of the shots in the film were directed by Zack. Now, the other thing is, you must realise that the studio was banking on the film's success, of course, because it was much lighter in tone, because it is about trying to listen to its majority of audience. Now, the majority of audience to go and see these films aren't Zack Snyder fans alone. They stand for the rest of the world, and the rest of the world and Zack Snyder is totally, you must, for a benefit, for the longevity of studios to continue making Warner Brothers DC movies, is they have to have, sadly, critical responses, that 5 stars and whatnot, and to encourage those people that heavily rely on these things. And they also need the money to say that, because you don't want to continue making films and not getting the right critical response to it, and it has to make money to give them that much confidence to continue down that line. Now, they must also, Zack Snyder's team is also heavily involved with DC films. They've got his own film company's got branches everywhere. He then left Justice League, Zack, and he went and helped Patty Jenkins with Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman are characters who he already, sort of created the look, and he picked the actress, and he helped with the film, who he actually got an award for the film. Whether he'll return back to Justice League is anybody's guess, but because of maybe the interference with the studios and stuff like that, it's not. But again, the interference could be seen as a good thing as well, because sometimes directors can go really off the rails. I don't mean mentally, but they'll become so absorbed of their own greatness. Steven Spielberg is famous for that. Many directors is probably famous for that. We're all famous for relying on our egos. But the studio, Warner Brothers, have been making movies for years, and they sort of know how to make films. And they probably, and as I say, they actually offered Zack a delay on making Justice League because of his daughter. They were supposedly offering, but Zack said no, and he insisted of carrying on trying to make it the way that everybody would enjoy. Now, yes, he's probably not seen the film, and that's because from the very beginning he's had a hard time trying to, make a 2 film into a 1 movie. The pressure of the studio trying to change his art, but for the studio's point of view, that Justice League film got more critical praise, it got more stars, and was mostly liked by the majority. Now, if you look at the people that like the Justice League, there's a vast majority that love Justice League, but have a wee bit, I could love to see the extra edition, the so-called Snyder Cut. I'd love to see that. Give us more. Any film can be made better with any extra footage. There's also something saying about is Warner Brothers going to add a Whedon cut or a Zack Snyder cut? Well, for me, it's any extra cut will be beneficial for the film to play it out. And a lot of people who'd seen Justice League said it was too short. It was over, they enjoyed it. So Warner Brothers has to take all this information and take it, yes, they got a bit of critical response, and people who are complaining about the Justice League movie that we got, well, actually has came back to me and says, listen, I did enjoy it, but I still feel that I've got the right to moan about all these extra scenes that will just make the film that much better. And allegedly, we've been seeing pictures of the video saying that it's going to be 2 hours and 30 minutes. Why did they delete the Superman scene, putting us on his caution? Maybe because we've seen something similar to it in Man of Steel. Or maybe it was repetition, which Star Wars is famous for. But we must try to see things through both sides. We must see it on... We've had 3 films in the DCU, and 2 of them were solely done by Zack and stuff, and they were met with, mixed reviews. DCE, so Warner Brothers is trying not to get Rotten Tomatoes, or not trying to get these mixed reviews, but an overall positive reviews to give the fans, to give the majority of the world a feeling that we want to start buying DC toys. We want the fans to enjoy it. And with Justice League, they feel like they did it. All throughout the mishaps of Zack, and all through the mishaps of Joss Whedon, all through the mishaps of the studio, we got a film that was made more popular than the previous ones. Should we should we ask for a Zack Snyder cut? Of course. But that's not the little... But again, buy both versions. Because it was a studio and Zack's both involvement that brought this to life. Okay, it was both their involvement. And we can pick and... and we can listen to all this bill rubbish from other websites. We can listen to the rumour of Zack being fired. Or Zack has went to Wonder Woman. He's not said a dicky bird. He knows the score over there. He was going through a hard time. The studio was trying to get the best films for the majority. Was it that big Chinese guy's fault, or whatever that guy's name was, that rushed it? Maybe. It could be everybody's fault. But it was a film that, if you look deep down in the heart of it, everybody wanted the best for this film. The studio wanted it. After BVS, we've all cried out with some people have heard, we don't want Warner Brothers interfering and stuff like that. But then you must listen to the other half of the audience. The other half of the audience that have said since Man of Steel and said it to BVS, these are all flops. They've destroyed the DCEU and everything else. And the only people supporting it is the Zack Snyder fans. And again, I'm a Zack Snyder fan, hence I started the page. But as the studio must try to bring everything together. And as I say, I think there was a lot of trouble on the set of Justice League, with Zack Snyder working away, trying to finish it, trying to cope with his girl. Warner Brothers trying to usher him in an extra 2 hours. But we'll probably see by the extra footage and the making of Justice League how much involvement Zack Snyder did have. And unless someday, somewhere down the line, comes out and actually tells us the full story, and not from Variety magazine, because it was Variety that, first of all, reclicked some old news about Zack being fired, then another reporter from Variety contradicted that and said no, he wasn't. So never pay attention to these things. You know, vote for a Snyder Cut as well, yes, of course, if that's what you need. But if it comes out and says Joss Whedon cut, whatnot, then just think of what the studio was thinking. Is this film had more stars. It was more publicly widely received from other fans. People were saying, that's my Superman. Warner Brothers has to listen and has to weigh up the pros and cons. And has to listen to, you know, we'll listen to the Zack Snyder fans, we'll listen to this. It's hard. And my heart goes out to Zack Snyder. And it goes out to the actors involved that wanted the film to do well. It goes out to the studios that are just trying their best in the balancing act to give us what we want. But here's a wee question for you. What if the majority of the film, as I say, what if the majority of the film has been shot by Zack Snyder, majority of what you see on the screen is Zack Snyder, and you've spent most of the time, you know, pooing it, you know. Yes, certainly it's probably not the film Zack Snyder visualised to bring out, and that's why he's not went to see it or filmed it, but he expects that from the studios. You know, he expected that from the studios. And I don't believe the studios would have fired Zack. Not just, you know, because even moral, because he'd lost his daughter. He'd probably just walked because he had enough. He couldn't, as an artist, do what he wanted. But then again, the studio needed to see an improvement in the critical scores and in the money. You know, they're trying to listen to the fans. And, you know, we cannot be selfish. You know, we cannot just say, let's have a Zack Snyder full film. We can't do. It's a gamble. It is indeed a gamble. And I believe in my heart that Zack Snyder is nowhere finished with Dceu. And I've come to the end of the video. It's now coming up for 30 minutes. I've just tried to put both arguments up there for the studio and for Zack and for Joss. It's definitely been a film of controversy. And I'll just say, you know, whatever we get next from the Justice League movie, just sit back and try, you know, and think of Zack, of course, think of the studio, and we know deep down in my heart, I believe that Aquaman and the new management behind the DCU will have a better grip and will know a lot better of what fans want. So don't, if you're a Zack Snyder fan or whatever, don't be childish and say, that's it, I'm finished with the DCU. These are your heroes as well. You may be a Zack Snyder fan, but you're a DC fan. And so go to the movies. Go to see these DC films. Because as I said before many times, before the internet, we wouldn't have known anything behind the scenes. We wouldn't have these extras. We would have just loved it. Here's, as a DC fan, gives hope. Thank you very much.